The tide carried the noisy elf tribe far away, apart from the sound of waves crashing against the rocky shore. Only a gentle breeze rustled through the fur of the nature god. In this vast expanse, only he remained to face Panda. Everyone knew this was an intense battle. His divine power had recently surged, while Panda had yet to unleash his full strength. Damn it, getting power from other gods just made this more complicated. The panda clenched his teeth and cursed. At this point, that hairy god might as well be some kind of tentacle-covered worm. He looks like a damn monster. The nature god grinned, showing his sharp teeth. Guess I only seem troublesome to you, huh? I heard you can wield all elemental attributes. Is that true? A frenzied vortex suddenly erupted, composed of two contrasting elements, fire and wind. The scorching flames combined with the razor-sharp gales, forming a deadly whirlwind. Ignoring the shattered remains of his previously beaten face, the nature god laughed heartily. A god must be invincible. Divine power shall be inherited. Eternal and undying. With that declaration, the fiery tornado shot toward Panda, who appeared as insignificant as a blade of grass in a storm from afar, yet everyone knew how stubborn he was. Instead of dodging, he raised his arms to shield his face and activated petrification, hardening his body like stone to withstand the assault. Perhaps he underestimated the combined force of fire and wind. Even water can erode stone over time. What more of a relentless storm? Wounds tore open across Panda's body as dozens of deep cuts bled profusely. He grit his teeth, trying to endure, but soon realized he had to escape. However, the god had already anticipated this. Where do you think you're going? Who said you could run? Super Cyclone Slash! The nature god tilted his head dramatically, like an actor flipping their hair. A radiant streak of light followed his motion, slicing toward Panda. Perhaps he thought the wounds on Panda's body were too few and wanted to add another for good measure. When had Panda moved? He must have slipped through the raging storm, charging straight at the nature god. But before he could react, the streak of light had already slashed effortlessly through a nearby mountain. As if slicing through a cake. By the time it reached Panda, it had lost none of its power. The scorching heat seared his face before he could even dodge. Then, it struck him directly. With a deafening crash, Panda was blasted into the water. The moment he touched it, thick steam rose into the air. The force sent him plummeting to the seabed, smashing through rock formations, reducing them to rubble. Amidst the wreckage, he coughed up blood. His blood was quickly swallowed by the swirling bubbles, vanishing instantly. Despite his severe injuries, as he sank deeper, he noticed an unusual flickering light above the surface. It shimmered like sunlight filtering through the ocean, but Panda knew better. It was the saliva of that hairy god. The nature god was unleashing a colossal fire pillar straight at him. The unbearable heat vaporized the water instantly, while the surrounding rock began to melt into blackened sludge. Yet, he wasn't done. He was preparing another glowing golden sphere, ready to crush Panda beneath its weight. The sphere was like a falling meteor, seemingly capable of piercing through the Earth's crust. Just as it was about to land, a crimson light streaked from its edge. Panda! He was still alive, despite his battered state. His tattered red cloak flapped in the wind, his heavy breaths visible. Golden energy coursing through his wounded body. The nature god looked delighted at his sorry state, laughing as he conjured another brilliant sphere. You don't have the light attribute, but I do! Panda indeed lacked light power, but he had something close enough. Behind him, a blazing orb of flames roared to life, the Red Lotus Solar Sphere, a signature technique gained after devouring hundreds of firestones. This is my strongest move! I'll crush you with it! Panda howled and fused himself with the solar sphere, hurling straight toward the god's light beam. The beam seemed thin and unimpressive, yet it tore through the solar sphere effortlessly, piercing straight into Panda's abdomen and doubling him over. He was sent flying 20 meters away. The nature god chuckled hoarsely. He could revel in his victory. Something lashed toward Panda, a massive, twisted vine-like tentacle, now expanded to an enormous size. Natural growth! But there was nothing natural about this monstrosity. Panda hadn't expected to be caught. His limbs were tightly restrained, struggling in vain as the tendrils coiled tighter and tighter. Hee hee hee, where's all that arrogance now? The nature god pulled him close, gleefully examining his captive, yet, in that moment, Panda raised his hand. The instant he found an opening, a pillar of ice erupted from his palm, piercing through the god's face, leaving a massive hole. Blood splattered everywhere. However, the bleeding ceased almost immediately as the extreme frost sealed the wound shut. Steam hissed from the frozen burn, and Panda's voice rang out, still defiant. What the hell are you laughing at? I'm still alive! For 2 seconds the god stood stunned, then, rage exploded within him. You brat! You're asking for a painful death! He squeezed Panda tighter, while dozens of blazing spheres ignited around him. A stunning yet terrifying sight, beautiful yet merciless. The scorching radiance could melt through any armor, all poised to engulf the lone panda. But Panda showed no fear, grinning instead. You really think you're the only one who can grow stronger? What? The nature god's eyes flickered with doubt. Wary of Panda's unpredictable tricks, then, violent spiritual energy erupted from Panda's body, radiating from every inch of his skin. I thought I could beat you with just half my power, Panda admitted. Guess I was being too optimistic. Unlike gods, he didn't have the luxury of multiplying his strength endlessly. He only had one way to face overwhelming foes, just like before, channeling all his spiritual energy into his heart and detonating it. Nearby, Emperor Crocodile, who was locked in combat with a group of dwarves, suddenly felt uneasy. Looking up, he recognized the surge of power instantly. Panda was going all in. A blinding crimson pillar shot skyward, its flames the hottest of all. Panda had trained relentlessly, yet fate always forced him to battle absurdly powerful enemies, driving him down a path of self-destruction. But he was used to it. He stood tall amidst the inferno, the tendrils melting away with a satisfying sizzle. The fire howled like a beast, yet Panda's voice rang clear. I am the mightiest beast of the misty mountains. If you die by my hand, consider yourself lucky. His fur turned stark white, the signature black patches around his eyes vanishing, making the god think he was undergoing some divine transformation. Half of Panda's body was engulfed in molten magma, grotesque and fearsome. This is the form born from complete elemental fusion, I call it. Explosion mode. The nature god fell silent, eyes widening in realization. This wasn't just a superficial transformation. Panda's spiritual power had skyrocketed, but explosion mode didn't transform his whole body, only half. It looked completely at ease with the flames coiling around its body. Rising into the air and looking down arrogantly, it spoke. Let's see, between you, a god, and my full power, who is stronger? The nature god accepted the challenge by tilting its head back and letting out a deafening roar. Gigantic bolts of lightning wrapped around its body, surging from the ground in an unnatural display. It was gathering power. At the same time, Panda arched its back and inhaled deeply. So deep that it could go no further. Then, its body snapped forward like an arrow released from a bow, unleashing a mind-shattering scream as it charged straight at its opponent. Both unleashed their immense spiritual energy in a raw, unrestrained clash. But to the god's shock, its colossal lightning shattered apart like an overinflated balloon. Oh shit, what the hell? The god's eyes widened in horror as Panda hurtled toward it with a massive lightning spear in hand. Panda's arm acted like a lightning rod, absorbing and condensing the electricity into a gigantic, crackling mass. The sheer force of it made its eyes strain, thin red veins creeping across the whites. You put a hole in me at the start. Didn't you? Now I'm returning the favor. With that, Panda shot skyward, stopping just above the nature god's head before hurling the lightning spear straight at its throat. Not good. The god twisted its body with all its might. If that thing had pierced its throat, even its immense divine energy wouldn't have been enough to prevent a fatal wound. It took everything. But the nature god managed to evade. Its body contorted like a writhing eel, but it survived. Staring at the cloud of dust and the mess of obliterated matter where the spear had landed, it felt a chill run down its spine. Even thinking about it made it tremble. If that attack had landed, it wouldn't have just been left with a simple hole in its body. You dodged it, huh? Panda growled, gritting its teeth in frustration. Then, with a vicious grin, it summoned a barrage of lightning spears from its back. You thought I only had one? I'm going to skewer you with a few more, and you die!